Okay, so welcome to the Node.js Next 10 meeting for March 1st, 2023. We'll follow our standard approach of going through the issues that were tagged in the agenda. The issue was number 193 in the Next 10 repo. But before we get started, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share? Okay, no announcements this week. So let's move on to things that were tagged for the agenda. And I think, as Jean mentioned just before we got started, the first thing to chat about maybe is session proposals for the next Collaborator Summit. That's kind of been announced, and CFP equivalent is open. So that would be a good topic to touch off with.
Yes, also, maybe if you have some, I don't know how many sessions will be available, because this time it will be only one day, when from memory, most of the other collaborator summits were held during 2 days.
Right.
So do we want to filter a bit more? Will we be able to have, I don't know if you have some information on your side, if we're able to have multiple sessions at the same time, or is it just one room and we will have to decide?
I haven't looked yet, but I think we should come up with like a list and then we could prioritize them, right?
Sounds great.
You know, and so any ones that people have top of mind, we can just we'll write the list in the minutes, and then we could kind of like say, okay, if we could only do one, which one would it be? Or
great.
I think the one that comes to top of mind for me is like, I think from the last Collaborator Summit, in terms of the priorities, the main thing that one of the ones that had sort of changed was function, or like serverless/functions.
Yep.
And so I wonder if like a serverless/functions deep dive would make sense, because we haven't done one of those.
It could be interesting to have that one. Yeah, because we did a few when we were in Austin, but I don't think we did something about the technical priorities when we were in Dublin. In Dublin, it was more, I think we had some people doing bug fixing in the other room, Next 10.
Yeah, they were focused on a particular, I think it was like an ESM problem or something like that, but it wasn't a deep dive on any particular topic. So just thinking we could, you know, at some of them we've taken some time and done a deep dive on a topic or two. So
we could do a serverless one. Yes.
Yeah.
I think, not 100% sure, but I think that Yagis or some people from the performance team will want also to discuss it, because it will be the first official collaborator summit since the performance team was created again, or I don't know how to say it properly, but let's say alive. Yeah. So I think we'll have at least one on that. But serverless, isn't serverless a bit linked to both the run? We could do, I think a deep dive in serverless would be really nice to do, but we will have to see if it's not the same or linked too much to some other team working on some stuff like performances, or I was going to say SEA, but not really sure about this one. But yeah, but could be great at least to have an idea.
Focused on node performance, but I expect that, like you said, they're quite likely to have a session on performance in Node Core kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts or top ideas on that front? You know, is it last time we did sort of the review of the priorities and that kind of stuff. So not sure we need to do that again, right?
Yes. Also, I do have a question. If we do something about serverless, maybe we can also discuss that later on, but could be great, especially because we'll be in Vancouver, to have some people. Would be great to have people from multiple cloud providers on that, because a lot of people are using serverless, yet behind the scene, AWS is doing some stuff to the runtime that we are not really aware of. So it could be nice. I don't know how to ask to people, especially or stuff like that, but you have people from this team that could share some insight on specific stuff. That would be, I think, a good help for us to work on also.
Yeah. So are you thinking like that might be a topic that it'd be better to do a virtual deep dive?
It could be great also, but I know that the team for AWS in Lambda, I think there is a team in Seattle, which is not that far away. So maybe we could, some people.
Okay, so yeah, we can see who we can get there. And
yeah, if we can get people there, it could be a great opportunity. But even if we are not able to have them here, we can just organize another one specifically with cloud provider to have more insight on what's missing basically from Node.js that they maybe add internally or some other stuff. Could be a great way to have a feedback from them, because serverless is mostly like 5 cloud provider doing serverless.
There's a few more than that, but yeah, there's because there's also like Knative serverless, which is something you can install locally. And
yeah, I was thinking in the fifth one using Knative or OpenFast or stuff like that.
Yeah,
but could be nice to have this kind of insight.
Yep, no, definitely. I'm just looking at the different like the technical priorities we have. So if we've done deep dives on a number of them, and there's efforts underway on a number of them. So
I think one of the priorities that I think we already did one, but it was, I think, in Austin, so almost a year ago. Should we have one more about observability / diagnostic channel again? Because it's still something that it's pushed by a lot of people.
Yep, that's definitely, and I think like I don't know if the diagnostic team would suggest one of those, but yeah, that might be one to say, like with the diagnostics team, does it make sense to try and schedule something and cover that sort of together?
Yes. Yes. I would guess some people from the SEA team will propose something, because we do have something working to generate binary in Node.js, to be able to execute stuff. But I will let them propose a session.
Yeah, any other ideas of? I'm just kind of thinking we've covered some of the stuff, so less things just jump out at me immediately.
Yeah.
Which is kind of good. I guess the one, I'm just trying to think how much we went into it in the last collaborator summit in terms of the sort of being a collaborator in Node.js and the experience there.
I don't remember that we talked a lot about that. I think from memory, at least in Dublin, we were talking about we were able to improve the process and to have more people, but one of the issue was some people were working on just one feature, which is really nice for them, but after that, was it worth it to spend a lot of time to have one collaborator implementing one feature and not having news of these people like after the feature was implemented? So consistency. We did discuss a bit about it. We could try to bring that, and should we try to brought back, what was the name of the meeting on a Friday, at least one a month, so every 2 weeks, about new collaborator onboarding, or I don't remember the exact name. I don't have it anymore. Like maybe you remember the name, Michael, like one or 2 times a year, some collaborators were able to, let's say, be available to train new people that would be keen to work on Node.js. And
right, like there was a mentoring initiative, and
yeah.
So you're thinking the mentoring initiative, or?
Yeah, so something around it. I don't have it. Could be mentoring on some of the stuff, or onboard. Yeah, mentoring, or help people to have an official way to not onboard people, but to say there is some collaborators that maybe do have time or want to help new people to work with Node.js, and to put some kind of way to work around it. But still, it's a burden for some collaborator, time consuming and stuff like that. So really
Maybe
depends.
like a topic would be building long-term collaborators.
Yep. Yeah, I love your name. So great. Great way to.
I think we've had the discussions before, like we used to have the code and learn, I think it was. But I think over time, we found that that didn't grab or maintain too many new collaborators, right? We get like one commit for a whole bunch of people. So really what we want to do is like, how do you build longer term collaborators? What's a good approach to do that? Because there's been some cases where, like I know, like on the Node add-on API, that I think it's actually worked well, where like we had people who were interested. We actually met at one of the conferences after one of the talks, and they're like, yeah, we're interested in this topic. And those people have been significant contributors since then. And it's like, so anyway, that's just like in my mind, one way, like, could we replicate that? Or are there other ways to sort of say, like,
I think
not go for volume, but go for like, if there are people who are interested, how do we bring the people who are going to be able to spend time long term?
Yes. No, I think it would be a great discussion with everyone. But should we hold this one maybe more online to have more collaborator jumping in, and not just maybe like 20 or 30 of us?
It's a question of like sometimes getting the people together and brainstorming, and then following it up is not a bad thing either. So
true.
But like you said, there may be only so many things. So I just wrote it down as one of the potential topics.
Yeah.
I'm looking at like the constituencies and the needs to see, like, are there things that are gaps still that we think we should be working on? I still think like the ways to fund and support people, but that I don't know we're going to be able to. We won't have the right people there to sort of solve that problem.
Yes. Not really linked to the OpenJS directly, but could it be something that could be brought to the Linux Foundation itself about helping company to develop / build a framework about, I would say, open source initiative as a whole, because not just thinking about contributing to open source or financing open source project, but could be one of the areas to say every company is using open source. So it's also linked to security, not using packages that are not maintained, or how to detect that, and pretty much everything. But I know that a lot of companies just don't know how to work with open source, and even if you go outside of the engineering part, people are not even aware what's really open source, both being able to contribute, and that everyone rely like 80 or 90+% on it. So do you think it could be something that could be, I think
it's worth going to them. That's sort of not part of the collaborator summit, but like, probably through the CPC is like, hey, I mean, and I think there's been some discussions there as well. I haven't seen any like, oh yeah, the Linux Foundation has a program to cover that, or, I mean, but it should. I mean, in my opinion, anyway, that's the kind of work it should be doing.
Yeah, because basically I'm doing that for my company right now, spending a lot of time across legal, communication, branding, engineering, architecture, security, and almost every part of the company, and just building even just a base framework on why it's important, what you can do as someone using open source could be great for everyone.
So yeah, I haven't seen anybody with a good set. So if you build a good set of assets or whatever, I'm sure the foundation would be happy to promote that.
Great. We'll try to do that.
But yeah, like it's kind of like but I think it would be like, maybe opening an issue in the CPC to say like, hey, this is something that I find I need.
Yep.
Where is the foundation doing anything? is the Linux Foundation, like, is the OpenJS Foundation doing anything to support this? Is the Linux Foundation doing anything to support that? Is probably the good way to get that discussion going.
Okay. Oh, great. I will do that.
Just trying to.
Also, on some of the other issue, just thinking out loud, because we do have like 9 minutes left,
Yep.
something around it.
Yep.
If you or Joe can just check at least the list of the attendees for the last Collaborator Summit, I think we can merge that. I think I have almost every name, but should be, maybe you did some typo or stuff like that. Could be interesting.
Okay, so yeah, so you got the, right, okay.
And also because we were all three here during the last TSC meeting when Claudio did a presentation about the documentation part. Mm-hmm. Should we discuss about what kind of next step do we want to do or work around it? Like, as a global stuff would be great, better to have Claudio. So maybe we can just move that to the next meeting and try to have Claudio joining us.
Yeah, I think that would make sense. Like, I think he's pretty on top of that. And, you know, he's got an updated proposal based on the feedback from the TSC. I do think that, like, you know, maybe going back with the update makes sense, but, you know, definitely need to have him here to hear like where he's at, when that would make sense and so forth.
100%. Because for me at least, it could be great to have a more useful documentation, I would guess. We already discussed about it, but if you don't know where you want to search for something in the current documentation, it's really hard to check something.
Yeah, searching is not there, so. Yeah, I'm trying to think of any other things where, like, having people together, any particular technical areas of interest that, and I'm sure people will be like, you know, suggesting some, but the list that we've came up with is, I think we've been doing, other than serverless, we've done the deep dives and everything, and we've got like next steps. It's a matter of like getting some momentum around work related to that. And there is like a number of them, like SCA, that we see that landed, and there's other stuff going on. So I think, like, you know, we've got the ones we've got on the list is like serverless functions, deep dive, observability diagnostic channel, and building long-term collaborators. So the observability diagnostic is probably like sync with the diagnostics team on that. Diagnostics team on this one. I think the building the long-term collaborators, that would be a good one we could propose. Same with the serverless deep dive. And any others that I guess we can think about that. Like, how long is I assume the call is open for a little while, right?
Yeah, I think like if it's like last time, we have at least a month.
Yeah. So I'm going to open it. I'll take the action to open an issue and put some of these minutes, like notes in there, and people can keep thinking about it and add more stuff. And I think that's a good step.
Yep, that's great.
So maybe let's just spend the rest of the time looking at, so it's like, Michael, I'm just going to say for the next one, you said, you know, basically think list is complete. People can just review, and then we can move off. Agenda, the metadata proposal for docs. I think you were saying, let's skip until next time when we have audio. The easy retros and do updates.
I completely forgot to push everything. So
okay, so you've almost got a PR you can push, and sounds good. Maybe down to the next 10 survey. I think we have a pretty decent set of questions, right?
Yes.
So that one, I think I pinged you, Joe, just as like you'd helped facilitate those a little bit in the past. Did I ping you? Maybe.
Yeah, on a comment
Okay.
on the PR, on the open pair.
So I was just wondering, what you think the best way is to, either ask the foundation. Well, yeah, I guess it's like the next step is like, can we get some support from the foundation to run the survey? I think the goal we've discussed is doing it before the next collaborator summit, just so that's, maybe some data that we can look at and see if there's gaps, might even suggest something we should be talking about.
Yeah, it's a good question. The foundation is a bit shorthanded at the moment. And I assume we would want to run it and get the data back and have that in a useful format beforehand, which isn't a lot of time. So I'll ask and see what they
Yeah,
think.
if you can ask, because I mean, maybe the question is like, can you support it in this time frame, or should we just run it ourselves?
Mhm.
Yep.
And then the ask would be that, like, that the Node account publicize it as well as go out to the mailing list.
Yeah.
If the answer is yes, great. Hopefully they can help with all the tools. Otherwise, I guess we can just do a survey monkey kind of thing, right? And
Yeah, maybe they can help with all the tools, but like just give us access to them and kind of review it before we send it out. But like, maybe we do some of the legwork and they help.
yeah, exactly. It's like what is possible from the spectrum of we just send our own questions out and they help promote, or
Yeah,
what else?
sounds good.
Okay, so you'll make that ask that question. Yeah. Okay. So Joe will ask. And like, we might as well pick, I think, when's the collaborator summit again? It's in May, right?
May 9th.
Yeah, the 9th.
Right. So I would almost say like our target is to have it out by April 1.
Yeah, an average run for the full month, something around
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
How long
That's
do
reasonable.
we think it would be open?
2 weeks, maybe?
I
3
don't.
weeks?
I think last time it was 3 weeks, if I
Okay.
remember correctly, but something around 2 and 3 weeks. Like, I would guess that after 2 weeks, if no one like retweet it again or share it again, everyone will forget about the link or stuff like that. So
Yeah, I agree.
I would guess that 90% of the answer will be in the first 3 or 4 days.
Yeah. After three, and then that would give us a couple of weeks before the collaborator summit. So like if we can actually get this going, one proposal might be, let's look at the survey data, like, or what does the survey data tell us, right? We could look at that as a group, that would be an interesting one, I think, maybe. So
could be very nice. Yep.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's, we can see whether we think it's going to be practical, and then we can, that's another proposal thing.
Yep.
I'm looking at the create communication channels. Michael has action. Sorry, I haven't done it to PR in approach somewhere. So like we opened the TSC issue and there was no objections or anything. So I have the action to PR that in of like, having a process where teams can say, here's our document, and we'll post incremental news there, and then we'll publicize those to people saying, hey, if you want to look for news that the teams are sharing, here's a good place to go.
Right. That's cool.
But yeah, I have the action to PR that in. I just have to do that still.
I think, for the suitable type, I think we discussed that like issue 104 is almost a year ago, I would guess.
Yeah.
What do we want to do about it? Because we are not really talking about it and still waiting on, was it some part also the documentation? Yeah.
I was just, I think that's a good point, in that really right now we're kind of assuming that the documentation stuff proposed by Claudio is gonna cover getting the restructuring.
Yeah.
So I think maybe what you're suggesting is like, I can say current assumption is that documentation proposal cover that's I'm gonna close with, right?
Because there is still a pull request being open in Node.js by Tierney, like
Right.
when was it? Like a year ago, so maybe
Yeah.
a bit more, which is still open. So should we, yeah, November 2021, 1.5 years ago. So
Right.
what should we do about it? Should we close it? Should we try to fix it? Should we do something?
It's a good question.
Just
I would say let's ask Claudio on that one, right? Like, let's sync with him and say, okay, there was some stuff in there which I think was useful, but like that PR, isn't gonna, it isn't moving forward. So probably should be closed, but maybe replaced with another one if there's still some useful bits.
Yeah.
But I think it would be good to check with Claudio on that and say, like, okay, is what you're working on going to necessarily change that? Because if we adopt the approach, there's going to have to be a bunch of updates in terms of like, how do you manage the documentation, all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So I think it will quite likely cover that, but maybe we can just check with him before we close that out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just added the PR link.
Yeah. Okay, it's at the half hour, so I have to drop off. I think it sounded like a few other people did too, so maybe we'll close out. Is there anything else we should touch on before we close out this week?
Not for me. That's good.
Okay, if not, then thanks for everybody's time, and we will see you in a couple weeks. Think about those topics for the Collaborator Summit, and we'll talk to everybody later.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yep. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.